her on the instant. With a frantic upward action of her hands, she staggered back into the passage. The door of Allan's room fell to, but not noisily enough to wake him. She turned as she heard it close. For one moment she stood staring at it like a woman stupefied. The next, her instinct rushed into action before her reason recovered itself. In 2 steps she was at the door of Number 4. The door was locked. She felt over the wall with both hands, wildly and clumsily, for the button which she had seen the doctor press when he was showing the room to the visitors. Twice she missed it. The third time her eyes helped her hands. She found the button and pressed on it. The mortise of the lock inside fell back, and the door yielded to her. Without an instant's hesitation she entered the room. Though the door was open, though so short a time had elapsed since the fourth Pouring that but little more than half the contemplated volume of gas had been produced as yet, the poisoned air seized her, like the grasp of a hand at her throat, like the twisting of a wire round her head. She found him on the floor at the foot of the bed. His head and one arm were toward the door, as if he had risen under the first feeling of drowsiness, and had sunk in the effort to leave the room. With the desperate concentration of strength of which women are capable in emergencies, she lifted him and dragged him out into the corridor. Her brain reeled as she laid him down, and crawled back on her knees to the room to shut out the poisoned air from pursuing them into the passage. After closing the door, she waited, without daring to look at him the while, for strength enough to rise and get to the window over the stairs. When the window was opened, when the keen air of the early winter morning blew steadily in, she ventured back to him and raised his head, and looked for the first time closely at his face. Was it death that spread the livid pallor over his forehead and his cheeks, and the dull leaden hue on his eyelids and his lips? She loosened his cravat and opened his waistcoat, and bared his throat and breast to the air. With her hand on his heart, with her bosom supporting his head, so that he fronted the window, she waited the event. A time passed. A short time enough to be reckoned by minutes on the clock, and yet long enough to take her memory back over all her married life with him; long enough to mature the resolution that now rose in her mind as the one result that would come of the retrospect. As her eyes rested on him, a strange composure settled slowly on her face. She bore the look of a woman who was equally resigned to welcome the chance of his recovery, or to accept the certainty of his death. Not a cry or a tear had escaped her yet. Not a cry or a tear escaped her when the interval had passed, and she felt the first faint fluttering of his heart, and she heard the first faint catching of the breath of his lips. She silently bent over him and kissed his forehead. When she looked up again, the hard despair had melted from her face. There was something softly radiant in her eyes, which lit her whole countenance as with an inner light, and made her womanly and lovely once more. She laid him down, and taking off her shawl, made a pillow of it to support his head. "It might have been hard, love," she said, as she felt the faint pulsation strengthening at his heart. "You have made it easy now." She rose, and turning from him, noticed the purple flask in the place where she had left it since the fourth Pouring. "Ah!" she thought quietly, "I had forgotten my best friend. I had forgotten that there is more to pour in yet." With a steady hand, with a calm, attentive face, she fed the funnel for the fifth time. "5 minutes more," she said, when she had put the flask back, after a look at the clock. She fell into thought that only deepened the grave and gentle composure of her face. "Shall I write him a farewell word?" she asked herself. "Shall I tell him the truth before I leave him forever?" Her little gold pencil case hung with the other toys at her watch chain. After looking about her for a moment, she knelt over her husband, and put her hand into the breast pocket of his coat. His pocketbook was there. Some papers fell from it as she unfastened the clasp. One of them was the letter which had come to him from Mr. Brock's deathbed. She turned over the 2 sheets of notepaper on which the rector had written the words that had now come true, and found the last page of the last sheet a blank. On that page she wrote her farewell words, kneeling at her husband's side: "I am worse than the worst you can think of me. You have saved Armadale by changing rooms with him to-night, and you have saved him from me. You can guess now whose widow I should have claimed to be, if you had not preserved his life; and you will know what a wretch you married when you married the woman who writes these lines. Still, I had some innocent moments, and then I loved you dearly. Forget me, my darling, in the love of a better woman than I am. I might, perhaps, have been that better woman myself, if I had not lived a miserable life before you met with me. It matters little now. The one atonement I can make for all the wrong I have done you is the atonement of my death. It is not hard for me to die, now I know you will live. Even my wickedness has one merit: it has not prospered. I have never been a happy woman." She folded the letter again, and put it into his hand to attract his attention in that way when he came to himself. As she gently closed his fingers on the paper and looked up, the last minute of the last interval faced her, recorded on the clock. She bent over him, and gave him her farewell kiss. "Live, my angel, live!" she murmured tenderly, with her lips just touching his. "All your life is before you, a happy life, and an honored life, if you are free from me." With a last lingering tenderness, she parted the hair back from his forehead. "It is no merit to have loved you," she said. "You are one of the men whom women all like." She sighed and left him. It was her last weakness. She bent her head affirmatively to the clock, as if it had been a living creature speaking to her, and fed the funnel for the last time, to the last drop left in the flask. The waning moon shone in faintly at the window. With her hand on the door of the room, she turned, and looked at the light that was slowly fading out of the murky sky. "O God, forgive me!" she said. "O Christ, bear witness that I have suffered!" One moment more she lingered on the threshold, lingered for her last look in this world, and turned that look on him. "Good by," she said softly. The door of the room opened and closed on her. There was an interval of silence. Then a sound came, dull and sudden, like the sound of a fall. Then there was silence again. The hands of the clock, following their steady course, reckoned the minutes of the morning as one by one they lapsed away. It was the 10th minute since the door of the room had opened and closed, before Midwinter stirred on his pillow, and, struggling to raise himself, felt the letter in his hand. At the same moment a key was turned in the staircase door, and the doctor, looking expectantly toward the fatal room, saw the purple flask on the window sill, and the prostrate man trying to raise himself from the floor. End of Book the Last, Chapter 3.